Hello there. Um, Today I want to teach you about story elements, and we're going to use the novel Shiloh for this. Get that out of the way there. Um, and then you're going to have an IXL assignment to do, as well as filling in these slides. So it's important that you pay attention all the way through this video because I'm actually going to give you the answers to the slides. So, hey, that's good news, isn't it? So story elements. Let me go ahead with the introduction. As we read the book Shiloh, we're going to work on some story elements. So some of the main ones I'm just going to kind of go through as I go through the slides. I'm not going to read them here. But the first thing for a story is obviously going to be character. All right, and most stories are going to have more than one character, which is the case with our story. So let me just read through this. It says a character is a person, animal, being, creature, or thing in a story. Writers use characters to perform the actions and speak dialogue, moving the story along a plot line. A story can have only one character, a protagonist, and still be a complete story. The character's conflict may be an inner one within him or herself, or a conflict with something natural, such as climbing a mountain. But most stories have multiple characters interacting, with one of them as the antagonist causing a conflict for the protagonist. All right, so most stories have more than one character, although you might occasionally have a story with just one character. So what does that protagonist and antagonist mean? Well, I'm going to explain that. The protagonist is usually the main character of a story, meaning that all of the story is based around the experience of this person. The protagonist encounters conflicts and is present all throughout the raising and falling action. This is your good guy. The antagonist is someone who opposes the protagonist. An antagonist can be seen as the bad guy. The purpose of an antagonist in a story is to introduce conflict. Conflict, we don't like it in our life, but it is good to have conflict in a story or a movie because it makes it interesting, because it makes you want to keep watching or keep reading to see how the characters solve their problem or their conflict. All right, so moving on. Who is the protagonist in Shiloh? Well, remember we said the protagonist is like the main character and it's the good guy. So in Shiloh, that's going to be Marty. And the antagonist is the bad guy, and we all know that's going to be Judd, right? So that's simply just some new terms that you may not have heard of before. All right, so moving on, you've got your characters. Another important thing for a story is going to be the setting. The setting of a story is a physical place that the story is happening and the time period at which the story is happening. Setting gives context to the character's actions in a storyline. What is the setting of the novel Shiloh? Well, if you remember, it is in the town of Friendly, West Virginia. Now, we don't really know, like, as the time period. We know they have cars and they have phones. It seems like, I would just say somewhat modern time. I don't think it's as modern as we have now. They don't really mention a lot of our big technology that we have, but somewhat modern because, there's cars and TVs and things like that. So, all right, so that's the setting. All right, setting is pretty straightforward. Now, a lot of books and stories, the setting's going to change throughout. They're not going to necessarily be in the same spot throughout the whole story. So that's something that can change. All right, another element of story is the plot. And the plot, I would say, is going to be the most important thing to a story because it's what happens, okay? It's the actual events of the story. All right, so I'll read this. The plot of the story is what happens in the story and the order it happens in. For there to be a story, something has to move, to change. Something goes from point A to point B. And the plot actually has 5 different parts that you can break it down into. You have your introduction, which is just your very beginning, where you're kind of just getting to know the characters, getting to know the setting. Then you're going to have your rising action. Stuff is starting to happen that's going to get you interested. Maybe some problems or a conflict is going to happen. The climax is like the most exciting part of the story. You've kind of reached the peak of excitement. I call that like being on the edge of your seat type feeling. Then you have to kind of bring your story to a close. So you've got your falling action and your resolution, which is the very end. So these next few slides talk a little bit more about that. It says here for number one, the introduction or exposition is where the basic characters and plot elements, such as the setting, are revealed. So in Shiloh, we got to meet Marty and we got to find out about where he lived at the very introduction. The rising actions are the part of the work where the problem or conflict of plot is introduced. The main character's life begins to get more complicated. So this is when, Shiloh kept running away and coming to Marty, and then Marty's trying to figure out how to get the dog, and then the dog comes back, and then he decides to hide Shiloh, and then all the lies that he's telling. So that is all part of the rising action, and it's all leading up to, a big climax. Okay? The climax is the turning point of a story. It is the moment where it seems like the main character is in danger, or could even possibly fail at resolving the conflict. The main character will come face to face with the antagonist and will most likely change. Now, I don't think that in Shiloh yet we have gotten to the climax. The part that you just read where Shiloh gets attacked and then Dad finds out and they take him to the vet, and then the parents now know about Shiloh, that's kind of climactic. It feels like it could be kind of a climax, but there's going to be what I consider to be the climax of the book is in chapter 12, and that's where Marty and Judd come face to face, and I don't want to give it away, but Judd finds out about Shiloh basically. So that to me is the climax. Okay, so that'll be coming up. The falling action is taking place after the climax. The falling action includes events that will help to fully resolve the conflict. The results of actions that the main character has taken are presented, as well as the results of the decisions that have been made, whether good or bad, for the character. And so, yes, we're going to find out how in Shiloh, some of the conflicts get resolved. The resolution is the end of a story, novel, or script, or even a movie. It includes the last plot element, the resolution. It is here that the loose ends are tied up, conflicts are concluded, outcomes are revealed, and a happy or sad ending takes place. We're hoping for a happy ending, right? All right, so moving on. Problem. This is what goes wrong in the story. This is all part of the plot, okay? Your problems and your solutions are all within that plot of that little diagram I just showed you, okay? Tell about a problem that Marty has faced so far. So when you type on your slide, there's tons of things you can put there. You can talk about the different lies. You can talk about him wanting Shiloh. You can talk about him hiding Shiloh. So there's lots of different things you can put there. All right, we're going to talk about point of view. Point of view is the position from which a narrator sees and understands what is happening. First person point of view is you're seeing the narrator's perspective of the story. And as you're reading, you're going to see the word I did this, I did that, I thought this, I thought that. Second person tells the story using the word you, like you will do this, you will do that. There's hardly anything ever written in second person. That's very, very rare. Third person, a lot of stories are written in third person. It tells the story as an outsider, describing the main character using either their name or the words he or she. All right, so Shiloh, though, is written in the first person point of view, because if you look through it, you'll notice that you see the word I a lot. Marty's telling the story that I did this and I did that. So it's written in a first person point of view. All right, so moving on to another story element, which is going to be the theme of the story, or another word for theme is the moral. The moral of the story is the message or lesson that you're supposed to learn. A lot of stories have a message hidden in them. All right. Sometimes the author does lay out the moral, but not usually. Sometimes it's up to the reader to figure it out. Here's some examples of themes and morals that a story might have. Dreams can come true. Be true to yourself. True love conquers all. Hard work pays off. Good defeats evil. It's like those big, like, life lesson type things. All right, here's lots more common morals that you see a lot of times in books or movies. Keep your promises. Do not cheat. Treat others as you want to be treated. Be trustworthy. Do not judge. Be dependable. Respect others. Be forgiving. Keep your self control. Have integrity. Be accountable and take responsibility. Have patience. Be loyal. Have respect for yourself. And there's tons more. You couldn't possibly list them all. All right, and then the last slide here says, what do you think a theme or moral of the book Shiloh is? Well, there's lots of different right answers that you could get for this. One that comes to my mind is if you tell lies, you will usually get caught, right? Because Marty, he had all those lies and he got himself into a mess. That's kind of a depressing one, I guess. You might come up with a happier theme, and it's going to be kind of hard, maybe, because we haven't finished the book, so we don't know. There might be more lessons down the line. Another lesson might be to treat animals with kindness, because that's a big thing that's mentioned in the book, with the poor dog and how he runs away because Jed's so mean to him. I don't know. There's lots more, and I'm sure that you guys can come up with them. So there's story elements that we just went over. That's your characters, your setting, your plot of your story, and your theme or moral. Those are the main aspects then of your stories, okay? And honestly, it's common sense. A lot of it is. Now that you're familiar with story elements, I'm going to have you complete IXL. It's I1 in 5th grade language arts, and it's just identifying story elements, as well as looking through and filling out your slides here. All right, so on the slides, you've got a few questions you're going to fill in. You're going to fill in what you think the theme or the moral is. You're going to fill in, what was it I filled in? There's just a couple of them. What is the setting of the novel Shiloh? I'll put these questions in a different color so they stand out better. And who's the protagonist and who's the antagonist? So just a few questions, but that just kind of lets me know that you did watch the video and that you got the lesson that way. All right. So if you have any questions on anything, just join my meeting tomorrow, or you can always send me an email. And that's it. Have a good one.